Hi, everybody. Thanks so much for joining us. We're just going to wait a couple seconds and give people a chance to join in, and then we'll get going. Okay, so we'll get started. Hi, and welcome again. We're excited to be here talking about end-to-end success for webinars. I'm Sarah Nichols. I'm the engagement manager here at Expert Marketing Advisors. Joining me today is Emerald Lindskog. She's a customer success manager at Expert Marketing Advisors. So hi, Emerald. Thanks for joining us today.
Hi, Sarah. I'm excited to be here with you to talk all things webinar.
Yeah. We're really excited about this topic because webinars are really an integral part of our marketing strategy that we execute on for our clients each and every month, month over month. And we know that getting started with webinars can seem daunting sometimes. So we wanted to share some of our best tips and tricks for webinar success to make it as streamlined as possible, make you feel confident in what you're doing. We've designed the slides today that we're presenting. They're attached as well to act as a checklist for your webinar marketing, planning, and execution. So after this webinar, be sure to take a look at that. It's a great guide for how to really get started with webinars. So Emerald's going to talk to us a little bit about why webinars.
Awesome. Thanks, Sarah. So I think we're all here today to learn a little bit about webinars and to talk all things webinars, which means you probably know how much of an impact webinars can have on your business. But we wanted to share a few facts and figures that emphasize why you need to make webinars an integral part of your marketing strategy. So 60% of marketers use webinars as part of their content marketing programs. As well as 54% of business to business professionals watch webinars every week. And I think, this figure actually increased in 2021. I think with a lot of folks being at home, webinars are definitely becoming more of commonplace for people to attend every week. So that's great. 73% of B2B marketers and sales leaders say webinars are the best way to generate high quality leads. And I think this is one of the ones I find to be almost the most impactful, which is that it really helps establish you and your company as thought leaders. You're putting together ideas in your field and, presenting on them, which automatically makes people look to you for advice and for current trends in your area. It enables you to engage and interact with your target audience. And this helps, people who maybe visit your website and just see a headshot with team members on your site. Having a webinar and video and conversations to interact with Q&A, this really allows people to put a face to your business. And so we highlighted some of the tools here. I mean, there's a variety of webinar platforms. I think it's really up to you and your company to decide which platform works best for your goals and for your budget. We've found that Bright Talk really is the best for lead generation, but Zoom Webinar is definitely an excellent option price-wise and if you're just getting started with webinars. So let's talk planning and marketing. As Sarah mentioned, these next several slides are designed as sort of a checklist for you to download these and take this with you, put them into a spreadsheet, add things on that are applicable to you and your company. So some of the key metrics that we like to do for planning a webinar is, make sure you're securing your webinar speaker a minimum of 4 to 6 weeks in advance of your target date. So great options for people to have on your webinars are partners, customers, or internal team members, like Sarah and I are doing today. You definitely want to hold a planning session a few weeks before. This will help you decide, what's the structure of the webinar, what's the content, who's going to be designing the slides. And then you want to make sure you're writing a webinar title and abstract. This is something you'll use for it'll help you craft your registration page. It'll help you craft social media content. It's really going to be something where the audience knows, okay, what is this webinar about and why should I attend? And then you obviously definitely want to build a registration page. So that'll be different depending on what platform you're using. And then I think one of the most important things that often goes overlooked because everyone has busy schedules these days, and especially if you have 2, 3, or 4 people involved in your webinar, it can be difficult to coincide schedules. But hosting a dry run the week of the webinar is very important. You definitely want to, all the platforms have practice sessions. And so, you'll email folks, how will they get into the webinar the day of? This helps people enter the space the way they will on the webinar the day of the actual live event. And it'll help them feel comfortable about how to access it, how to screen share, things like that.
And to kind of piggyback on that with conducting a dry run, one of the major benefits of doing a dry run is really just comfort with the platform that you're working within. So BrightTalk, there's a specific way to log in. So people need to have a BrightTalk account. So making sure that they have that all set up. And then with Zoom, making sure that everybody feels comfortable with the link to join. It just puts people's mind at ease going into a webinar that you don't have to worry about the tech side of it on the day of. You just have to worry about what you're presenting.
Absolutely. So here are a few pieces that we suggest you do when marketing your webinar. These are not all of the things that you can do. You should definitely be experimenting with what works best for your target audience. But these are some of these items that we do for ourselves and for our clients. One of them is that we tend to write a blog every month with the topic coinciding with whatever your webinar topic is. So this is something we usually release a few weeks before the webinar and continue to post that on social. We also try to find curated content, articles that are focused around the similar topic as our webinar topic to have on social media. It kind of just helps our audience understand, we have like a theme of the month, basically. It gets people excited about the topic and understands what we're going to be talking about in our webinar. You want to create 1 to 2 social media cards to use for promotion. It's really great if you can get headshots from the folks that are involved. It really puts a face behind what people are going to be talking to. You want to get your team involved. So if you're partnering with someone on the webinar, provide them with the image, provide them with suggested social copy. We want to get, your partner, your teammates, internal folks all excited to help you promote. And then we want to start promoting on social 2 weeks prior with posts at least once a week, especially maybe 2 days before the morning of your webinar. And then dedicated email promotion. So, there's a lot of facts and figures out there. Definitely all of it really points to that. Really, folks don't really sign up for webinars more than a week before. So, we here at EMA, what we do is 1 week before the webinar, as well as 2 days prior, we send dedicated email promotion. It really just seems like people want to wait until the week of, even sometimes the day of, just so that they understand their schedule.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, a lot of people will ask, why not promote it, 3 weeks prior, a month prior? And what we've really seen is just that people don't don't know what's going to be on their plate a month down the road or 3 weeks down the road to commit to a webinar time. So we see the biggest boost in registrants a week out and then 2 days prior, as Emerald said. So I'm going to talk through execution of the webinar day of. What should you be doing for a successful webinar? So we always recommend that all of the panelists who are participating in the webinar arrive at least 15 minutes early. It gives a great opportunity to test your audio, make sure that your camera is working, answer any last minute questions that people have. People always will ask, just want to check in one more time on the structure. What questions are you going to be asking me? It's always best just to leave about 15 minutes, at least 10 minutes prior, to make sure that everybody's comfortable and it's all working properly. We always make sure to have multiple people who are involved have access to the slides. Everybody's experienced tech issues before where Zoom suddenly cuts out or they can't share their screen, like they don't have the correct permissions on their computer. So making sure that multiple people who are involved have it, somebody can jump in and take over as needed. Always include an administrator on the webinar. We typically act as the administrator, but providing any technical support. Every now and then you'll see somebody who they shared a link with a friend and they end up joining in as a panelist instead of as an attendee. And you as the administrator can make sure to move people over to where they need to be. The administrator also is a great person for the time check, making sure that we're staying, if we're having a 30-minute webinar, that we really stick to a 30-minute webinar by warning people, we're at 20 minutes, 10 minutes to go, and then ensuring all the panelists see questions in the Q&A or comments. If you have a really highly engaged audience, those questions will be flooding in, and an administrator can kind of pull the most pertinent questions out and feed those over to the panelists to answer. We recommend having your webinars last around 30 minutes, 20 to 30 minutes. That would be 20 minutes for presentation and 10 minutes for Q&A. When we look at the stats for when people drop off on a webinar, it's usually around that 30-minute mark. People start to trail off. Attention spans aren't always that long. People are busy. Keeping it short and concise is always best. And then we have a little task list for post-event. What do you do once the event's actually over? How can you use that asset that you now have? A great place to start is just having the webinar replay on your website with the transcript and a PDF of the slides, if applicable. The transcript helps you with the SEO component on your website, and then the webinar replay, obviously people who missed it or are finding you after the webinar can watch it. We always send a follow-up email to all of those who registered for the event. So part of our promotional emails is that we'll say, can't make it on that day, register, and we'll send you a follow-up email. That's where this comes into play. So including the webinar replay video, anybody who you'd want them to reach out to and contact if they had questions. And then also using the webinar replay on social media and as part of your monthly newsletter. So on social, we typically recommend posting the replay either day after or the following week. Tuesdays and Wednesdays typically perform the best, but putting that replay out there for people to continue to sign up for lead capture. And then also as part of your newsletter, as Emerald mentioned with a blog post that's related to the webinar, we typically recommend that newsletters are kind of like thematic and represent all the marketing activities that happen during the month. And so this webinar replay is a great thing to kind of slot into that newsletter. And it can also be used as sales collateral. So we will pass on the webinar replay link to the sales folks in the organization, and they can use that as a tool for their own outreach. In terms of metrics that we measure, if you're using BrightTalk as your webinar platform, we do like to look at channel subscribers. BrightTalk does have channel subscribers as a component. We look at registrations, how many people registered versus how many people actually attended. A strong attendance rate is around 30%. Kind of peak pandemic, we were seeing attendance rates as high as 50 and 55%. I think people were just home. They were on their computer. They're like, I'm going to take some time for a webinar. As things have kind of continued on, we've seen those rates drop back down to the typical 30 to 33% attendance rate. We also look at the no-shows, and then we track live versus recorded views. So I think, Emerald, anything that I missed? I think we kind of blew through the topic a little bit, but I hope that we gave some good tips and tricks.
I think this is a great place for folks to get started or to check out maybe some pieces they're missing in their webinar strategy. So again, I think if people are interested, please make sure that they're downloading the presentation. And for any, for additional B2B marketing tips and tricks and best practices, please, I invite people to follow us on LinkedIn, where we post original content, blog posts, and curated articles, as well as subscribing to our BrightTalk channel.
Yeah, and as Emerald said, thanks so much for joining us today. I know everybody has a really busy schedule. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out to us at contact@expertmarketingadvisors.com. And thanks so much for joining us today.